You have a question. This gentleman, I promise, was next.
Thanks a lot. So I have 2 parts from the Tanakh that I want to also quote and ask you about it. But first I want to start with this. At the beginning there was no Christianity. At the beginning there was no Jesus. You said...
Just say the beginning, I don't know, the beginning in the 1st century or the beginning of the world? Oh, 1st century, okay.
Is there any...
So let's go to your question, go ahead.
Now we go to the two scriptures of the Tanakh. We have... I will start with Daniel. Yeah? Is Daniel the truth? Or will you also tell me that Daniel at the end was miscalculating on his numbers?
Oh, no, Daniel's the word of God, of course.
Oh, Daniel is the word of God. So Daniel in chapter 9 gives us exactly the year when Mashiach is going to come. And he tells us that after he came, the temple...
What is this calculation? Please share it with us.
The calculation is in the scripture.
So tell it to me, please. I'm very curious.
Oh, you know the calculation.
So if I know it, why am I not a Christian?
Very interesting that I hear other times, oh, Daniel did miscalculate.
I'm not, just like you're not responsible for Roman Catholics, don't make me responsible for everybody else, okay? All right, so now, please tell me the calculation of Daniel chapter 9.
We have a clear calculation. Everybody can read it out.
No, you're not being honest now. If you have such a fantastic calculation, don't tell me I know it. If I do, no, don't. What is that calculation? I'm listening. Give it to me. What is it?
What he told us this weeks that will pass and will pass till Mashiach will come brings us to the year 32.
Really? How does that? Please tell me the math. I'm very interested.
We have to get aboard.
Why at the board? Just give it. Believe me, I'm very familiar with the text. If you just tell me when we start counting, I'll know exactly. When do we start counting the 490 years? You tell me.
Oh, now you have it.
I heard of it once in my life, yes. When do we start counting this? No, I'm asking you. You're saying you believe in this faith, and this is the first verse you ever brought up. I asked you a question. I think it's a fair question. Please, tell us this calculation. And I asked you the most simplest thing. If it's a 490-year prophecy, please tell me when we start counting. That's a fair question. So please, it's changed your life. Tell me when. I say it as a brother.
I have to answer on that. This is not the point that changed my life.
Well, you can't. What you're doing is...
When I bring it up, I hear everybody telling me that this is a miscalculation.
Please, all right, I'll do this. Let's jettison Daniel 9 then. If you're saying, you're actually bringing me a proof of a verse, and then when I asked you, just explain it to me without a board, just when you start counting. I mean, you said, I want to talk to you, sweetheart. Listen, brother to brother, achi tachi, okay? Daniel 9, you're saying, contains a chapter of 27 passages. You're saying that in this chapter contains the proof of exactly the day of his crucifixion, which you're saying is 32. Accepted completely. 32. Beautiful. This is what is. Stay with me. No, stay with me. So, and you're saying you agreed, you said, Rabbi, you know it. So I said to you, it's a 490-year prophecy, which culminates at 32, as you say. Granted all. So I asked you a fair question. When do you start counting, and how do you know you start counting that way? If you can't answer that question, then I would just say to you, then we'll move on to the next topic. But I would say to you tonight, when you go to sleep, you would say, how is it possible, really, that a text that I think is so important that I just didn't even know when to start counting? I don't, God forbid, mean to anything. That's one. I want to say, I think it's a fair criticism. I think, to be honest, you should say, like, I accepted what you said, please accept what I said. I want to ask you another question. No, I want you to listen. I promise you, if we don't take another, believe me, I'll take all of you, not stopping. I want you to listen, because I care about you. And I'll be here for a few more weeks, my time is yours. Listen. Let's suspend that we don't know when to start counting 400, or we don't recall because we don't have a board, whatever. But you're saying that the prophet Daniel, who lived 2,500 years ago, he lived during the Babylonian exile, foretold the precise date that he would be cut off, that he would be executed, the Messiah would be killed. Do you know how important that is? You know what a fantastic claim that is? You're saying that we are told by Daniel, who's a holy man, actually Daniel isn't speaking, the angel Gabriel is speaking, just for context, but it's recorded in the book of Daniel, that the exact moment of when the Messiah is supposed to be killed is recorded in the Jewish Bible. I have a question for you. I grant everything. I want you to answer one question. I want to ask you a question from heart to heart. I'm not chas v'shalom. I don't try to catch you. I'm trying my best to be as honest as you would expect me to be. I want to ask you this question. If this is the case, but think before you answer, we have 27 books in the New Testament. Why, if this is the case, now I would posit to you this was a later Christian invention, but here's the question. If this was not a later Christian invention, I use the word Christian, just give me a free pass on that one, okay? Why isn't this quoted anywhere in the Christian Bible? That means, in order for you to believe that there's a clear prophecy in Daniel 9 of exactly the date, the year the Messiah is supposed to kill, are you telling me that the authors of Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, all the letters of Paul, the letters of John, the letters of Peter, whatever you accept, none of them thought that point was important enough to mention the New Testament? Does any sane, sober mind believe this? That means, I hope you got this point. It's not quoted in the Christian Bible. In order for you, sweetheart, listen to me. In order for a person to believe that the Jews are wrong and the believers in Yeshua are right, okay, I did it. You have to believe that not one writer or apostolic father, that means Clement I of Rome, it's Daniel 9, meaning the text from verse 24 and 25, 24, 25, 26, and 7 is never quoted in the Christian Bible. They just went, yeah, we do have the exact calculation of Jesus' death, but there are more important things than that. I will say this to you, my brother. If you can accept such thing, you're not being honest with yourself. You cannot believe that no first century Christian thought that would have been important enough to point out. Okay? You can't, and if you can come up with an answer to that question, you'll be the first person who believes what you believe can believe that. No sane mind can believe that the authors of the New Testament, whoever they were, believed that Daniel 9 had such a prophecy, or else they would have quoted it. Now, as it turns out, Daniel 9 very, very quickly is a description of a period of 490 years. The Second Temple stood for 420 years. The Babylonian exile was 70 years. Total is 490 years. And that's what it comes into view for Daniel when he's crying out to God. Why is Daniel crying out to God? Most people who quote Daniel 9 never read Daniel 9, 1 through 22. So in truth, it's describing to us an anointed one, a Mashiach, who will give the command to rebuild Yerushalayim and the temple. Who is that? Who is this Mashiach Nogid, an anointed prince, royalty, who gives the command to rebuild Yerushalayim? Who is he? There's only one person in Tanakh. Open up your Bible to Isaiah 45, verse 1, and accept Hashem in your life right now. And it says there openly, so says the Lord of Kairesh, he's my Mashiach, who gave the command to rebuild Yerushalayim. That's who it is. What the church did was, they took the word Mashiach appears in Tanakh 39 times. And all 37 other times, it's translated as anointed. As it turns out, the word Mashiach appears more frequently in the book of Leviticus than any other book, because it's the Kehanim who are frequently called the Mashiach, or HaMashiach. So in all other places, all the good Christian Bibles translated as anointed, and only here they translate it as Messiah, capital M, all those things as a capital letter in the Hebrew language, they stick it in there. Then they put a definite article, it doesn't even say HaMashiach, but it's the Messiah. This is a corruption of epic proportions. But I just ask you the question, think, Why would Christians in the first century not think this was an important enough passage to quote? The answer is it starts with the destruction of the first temple. Read Daniel chapter 1, verses 1 and Daniel 9, verses 1 and 2, and it ends with the destruction of the temple. My gosh. Read verse 26 and 27. The end of this 490-year period is the destruction of the people of the prince who come down with a flood and destroy the sanctuary. Well, what sanctuary was destroyed in the year 32? And the answer, there was none. There was no temple. The Beis HaMikdash wasn't destroyed for another 40 years. That's 5 more weeks. It doesn't work. Now, are you today going to change your mind? Or are you today going to turn to Torah Judaism? I don't know. But at least I implore you from heart to heart, please consider my words. Okay? Please just take it to heart. What other passage? Now it's yours. Apologize. This is more important for a moment. Stay. I'm telling you, Mamish, there's no flight left for me tonight. I'm not going. Go, sweetheart.
The other passage that I have is Psalm 22.
Yes.
This is also not stated in the New Testament. Psalm 22 is when Yeshua is dying. He starts the quoting of Psalm 22 in verse 1. Yeah? When he says, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. So he reminds us to the whole psalm. But this psalm was changed 1,000 years later, yeah, by the Masoretic text. And we know that it was changed because it says, I'm pierced in verse 16, I'm pierced in my hands and in my feet. But if we go to a Jewish Bible or a Jewish Tanakh inside, we see they have changed it and they say, oh, there are lions in my head and in my feet. But if we go and check later the older manuscripts, we see that it says, it's pierced, I'm pierced in my head.
Really, please tell us, there are a lot of Hebrew speakers here. I mean, you're telling me this is important to you. Could you tell us what is this Hebrew word that means pierced that was found in some ancient manuscript?
I think it's karu and kara. This is
karu? What is the word? Could you just tell me?
It's changing of a yud, yeah, that made longer and became a vav, yeah, and made it the word of being pierced in the hands and on the feet, meaning now that there are lines on the hands. Does that make no sense at all?
Okay, I'd like to answer you. Thank you. Let me now. Okay, so what this gentleman is telling us. Singer, not so quick. As it turns out, we have a text that's 3,000 years old, written by King David. And the text, this chapter, is quoted widely in the Christian Bible. And if you open up our Tanakh, any Hebrew Bible in the world, it'll say in verse 17 in a Hebrew Bible, 16 in a Christian Bible. The fact that you said 16, not 17, is interesting because you distance yourself. But anyway, because only a Christian Bible would say it's verse 16. But we'll set it aside. It says in the text, for dogs have encompassed me, a company of evildoers have enclosed me. And the last 3 words of the text is Ko'ari Yodei V'Raglai. Like a lion, they're at my hands and my feet. What does that mean? Well, if you're familiar with the chapter, you'd know that the lion theme is everywhere. Does anybody have a Tanakh open? If you open Psalm 22:14 for a moment, it'll be interesting. You're saying it really doesn't say Ko'ari there. It says really not like a lion that my feet, but they pierced my hands and my feet, which certainly does sound like a crucifixion. Okay. Then you said that the Hebrew Masoretic texts all have been changed. And originally that's what it said. Before I even go into this, why isn't this quoted in the Christian Bible? That means if first century Christians believed that it said, that means if we're lying and the first followers of Yeshua, okay, I play by the rules, believe that said they pierced my hands and my feet, you have to believe that they didn't think that was an important enough verse to quote. Not inconceivable, number one. Number 2 is what you're saying is not correct. As it turns out, every single Tanakh in the world, anywhere, Masoretic or otherwise, the next time you're at the Western Wall, you'll go into the men's section, that little tunnel that goes in, you know, on the left side? And you walk in a few bookcases down, there's an entrance and there's a scroll there. That's not a Masoretic text. There's no vowels, there's no dots, there's no nekudot, there's no trap, nothing. And you'll have the exact same word. All Masoretic text means is you have a consonantal language like Hebrew, just consonants, but you have no punctuation and you have no vowels. And of course you don't have the musical notes. And all that happened was in the early Middle Ages, Masoretes, this tradition would then added that in, just so people could recognize it. That's all. So of course there was no Masoretic text in the first century. They changed it. But how did they manage to change it in Yemen? Yemen, there were no Christians. Every single Bible in the whole world says the same word in Hebrew. Not one Bible ever found says they pierced. Now, I know what you're going to say now. And I'll say it. Don't be offended. I'll articulate it better than you. I'll play the other side for you. So they'll go, hold on right now. As it turns out, there is a fragment that was found in Nachal Chever. Nachal Chever is not as old as Qumran. So Qumran will be first, second century BC. Nachal Chever is between the two wars, so it's a couple centuries later. And we have a fragment 5/6, HEVPSA. And it seems there that the Yud of Ko'ari, Kof Aleph Resh Yud, is a little bit longer. This is what you said. I don't want to misrepresent, right? I'm honest. The Yud, if you take a Yud, so the Yud has a spitzel on the bottom. Has a little bit, right? But let's say you take the Yud all the way to the bottom, then you don't have Ko'ari, you have Ko'aru. And Ko'aru, you just argued, means pierced. This is sheker v'chazav is a lie. Kaf Aleph Resh Vav. What does that word mean? Anybody? What is the word in Hebrew where I'm standing here in the land of Israel, filled with Hebrew speakers? You all don't tell me none of you speak Hebrew. Kaf Aleph Resh Vav. What does this word mean? Nothing. It means nothing. There is no such word. I'm not going to get into it. You can't have a verb with the aleph in it as a root. I don't want to get complicated. There is no such word. You have been lied to. Now stop, I'm not done, sweet. No, stay with me. It's not true. It's sheker v'chazav. It's being promoted, started off by a professor in Canada, and by, I don't want to get into Flint, whatever, and I have a whole chapter on this in my book with the manuscript. There is no such word. You have been lied to. Now, in order to, first of all, you have to believe that every Tanakh in the world, Masoretic, everybody's wrong. Why would the Yemenites change it? Nobody but people like this one. So as it turns out, it's not true. It's a lie. There is no such word. This is gibberish. There is no such word as Ko'aru. Kof Aleph Resh Vav. It does not exist. It actually can't exist, and I'm not going to get into the complicated grammar behind it. But this is what I want to say. In order to get a word that remotely resemble piercing, you not only have to turn the Yud into a Vav, but you have to remove the Aleph also. Well, you have the word karu. Now we have a word. The word karu does not mean to pierce. I know you're told, this is what they say in Mishnah. The word karu means to open, to excavate. They sometimes use it like karu bor. They sometimes will translate it as dig a well. It doesn't mean dig in that conventional. It means to open, to lower. When King David in Psalm 40 says that sacrifices and offerings you did not desire, but oznayim karisali, my ears you have open for me. That's the word. What does it mean? Someone stabbed him in the ear? Okay, so you should know, listen. It's not true, and the proof it's not true is when you go home, you look up in Tanakh, if there is a single word in all of Tanakh, there are over 300,000 words in Tanakh, if there's one other word in all of Tanakh that has that word karu, you'll find it's not there, you've been lied to. In Hebrew, you would never say karu yodai v'raglai. It would not make sense to any Hebrew speaker. There are words to pierce, as in stab through flesh. Dakar. So say Dakaru Yodai V'Raglai. The Nakev would be, let's say Dakar really means to stab. Okay? You would never ever, so it's not true. Now it is true that digging wells as in excavating sound could remotely resemble, that's not even saying it isn't there, and you have been lied to. If you take the Yud and turn it into a Vav, you do not have the word pierce. It's just not true. Moreover, listen, If you open the same text, if you actually look at the fragment, you'll see it's almost impossible to read it. And the letters are not uniform like a Sefer Torah would be. We have much better uniform text in Qumran. And it's also filled with misspellings. The next word is Yodai. Yud, Daled, Yud, my hands. If you go to that Nachachever fragment, if you don't have it, I'll email it to you. The scribe who wrote it, now he's writing in the middle of a desert, so maybe he did a better job than I would do. But actually in that fragment, the next word is Yud, Daled, Yud, Hey. I'm not kidding. And there it's very clear, which means, Yud, Daled, Yud, Hey means Yodeha, which means her hands. The scribe misspelt the very next word, so you would know that today is the day to do tshuva. So it's not true. Moreover, you have to understand this. Again, if this is such an important text, a prophecy that the Messiah is to be pierced, you have to believe that no Christian writer in the first century thought that that was important enough to quote. And they're quoting from Psalm 22, the cry of dereliction from Mark is in there. They parted my clothing, as we find in John. It's all over. Psalm 22 was cherished by first century Christians. They're saying, yeah, it says they pierced my hands and my feet. No, the church has lied. There's no such word as ka'aru. But if you go to missionary literature, instead of going to the original, you might find yourself in a little trouble. I hope you're not offended. If I have offended you in any way, what's your first name? What? Elam. Adam. If I've offended you in any ways before Rosh Hashanah, I ask you, please forgive me. Okay, I'm sorry. I talked to you, we're among our own. Now, you had another question. I just wanted to get it out. Go ahead.
It wasn't at the point. The point was that the sages that translated the Septuagint into Greek 200 years before Yeshua came, they also translated it that pierced. So 70 sages translated the Septuagint, the Tanakh, into the Greek, and they all were wrong.
This is a very interesting question. I want to explain. This is actually a brilliant question. So as it turns out, roughly a quarter of a millennia before the Christian century, he's saying that the rabbis have gathered and they produced what's called the Targum Shivim, a translation for the king of, we'll call him the king of Egypt, the part of the empire that was Egypt. And as it turns out, if you open up the Septuagint, and Psalm 22 verse 16, it will say in the Septuagint, they pierced my hands and my feet, and he's telling the truth. It does say that there. And my friends, the Septuagint was translated 250 years before Christianity. What then was their incentive to do that? It must be that the Jews changed the text because they didn't want people to follow Yeshua. Right? Right. The answer is it's not true. What? So I'm going to tell you something. You'll look it up everywhere. You can open any Septuagint in the world. There's no Christian scholar who would argue with me. Now, the guy on the street who goes to the hostel, the Christian hostel, they believe that's not true. The original Septuagint, all Christian scholars know this, was only of the Torah of the 5 books of Moses. Now, I will tell you this. If you go on, I'm sure there's a free Septuagint somewhere online. If you read the introduction to every Septuagint in the world, it will tell you that in the introduction. The original Targum Shivim, this is something that's unfortunately people fall victim to. The original Septuagint was only of the 5 books of Moses. It was not of the book of Psalms, not of the book of Isaiah, not Jeremiah. That was later created. And what you have today is the Septuagint that you get on Amazon is really a production of the church. And Origen was its primary editor. Origen is a 3rd century church father. This Greek translation, they adopted the name Septuagint. It's like the word Xerox or Kleenex. That these words, even though there's a company, Xerox is a company, but it actually created a big copyright problem for Xerox because people say, go Xerox this paper, but it could be a Canon copier. So what happened was the Septuagint, of course, is very, very well known. It's discussed in the letter Aristide. It's brought down all over the place. In the Gemara and Megillah, Daf Tes, meaning Megillah, the Talmud, it's all there. It's of the 5 books of Moses. I encourage I know you don't like Jerome, he's a Catholic church father, but if you just read his introduction to Book of Chronicles, he discusses extensively. And believe me, Jerome was not a big fan of Rabbi Tovia Singer. Josephus says the same thing. They all say it. Now, what I'm saying now is every Christian scholar knows this, but unfortunately, missionaries exploit this. It's not true. The Targum Shivim was not of the book of Psalms. And in fact, we do not have a Septuagint today. It doesn't exist because the library to which it was put in was burnt down to the ground. If you have the original, what is called technically among scholars the Proto-Septuagint, you're a very rich man. It will be a priceless thing in Christie's because no one has it. And what we have today is a Christian product. And what they did was they went back and said, let's look at all these Christologies and then let's insert Greek words that bolster the Christian claim. The Septuagint today is a lie. And that's why, without even looking, I can't even see, you won't find one Septuagint anywhere. It's a product of the church. But I'm going to just say this to you. In no universe, in no planet, is a translation superior to an original. That's called anybody who's a lawyer here knows what's called the law of best evidence. If you don't know what this is, then you can't even go to law school. Law of best evidence is when you have a document in the original language, no translation could be superior. So the answer is that the Septuagint was of the 5 books of Moses. The Septuagint was not of the 5 books of Moses. But when there were Greek translations later, they put the word Septuagint on it without fear of getting sued by people who are long dead. So the word Septuagint became a capital S, but it is not the Septuagint. And again, whichever Septuagint you read, it could have the biggest cross on the front of it. Doesn't make a difference. I know you're not, but they will say what I said. It's uncontroversial. So therefore, this is sheker v'chosam. It's not true. If you have another, you can throw at me. We'll go to somebody else. Up to you, sweetheart. You want to think a little bit? Let me ask you one question. Would it be meaningful to you? I just ask you because I want to know one thing. I ask you. You ask. Now I ask. You go home. This is important to you. Because do you believe Jesus? Do you believe Jesus is God and He's not?
I don't believe in Jesus.
So you don't believe He's God. But clearly it's not a good idea spiritually. Let me just, Adam, let me just say this to you. You have to concede that if Jesus is not the Messiah and He's not worthy of adoration, okay, I didn't say worship, adoration, and one does follow say that He is Mashiach and He's worthy of my adoration, I can pray in His name and so on. If He isn't, it's very bad. It's a bad thing, right? Spiritually, it's a bad thing. I'm not saying you're wrong, you're going to figure that one out, but it's clearly there's everything that's at stake. It's a really bad thing to believe any of that. If it isn't true, I grant that. So I want to ask you this question. If tonight you go home and you look up what I said, you check it out, and you find that I've told the truth, that everything I said was true, would you at least consider studying with me a little bit further, and at least be open-minded to the possibility, well, if I thought all these things were true and it turns out it might not be, then maybe other things I assumed were correct might not be. Would you at least consider doing that? You're going to be in my prayers.
So, according to this, what you just said,
yes.
Yeah? What do you say to all these people who believe that the Lubavitch of the Rabbi is the Mashiach?
Explain the question.
I mean, you said that this would be an abomination if you believe it today. So what do you say to all these Chabad people?
I really wish you hadn't asked that question. I'm not going to lie to you. When the Rebbe, who I met many times and loved him very, very much, and why he thought I was worthy of time with him, I'm not sure, but I'm very grateful that I did. It is possible, given that in every generation is someone who's ready to be the Mashiach, in every generation. So that's why Mashiach is called a branch. Why? Where's the branch? Because like a tree has so many branches, there's so many people who could be the Mashiach. In every generation, someone else has to rise up. That possibly, maybe if the generation had deserved it, then maybe he could have been the Mashiach for that generation. I answered you directly. But as it turned out, the generation didn't deserve it because of what it says in Isaiah 59, verse 19 and 20. Uvolu Tzion Goel, that a Redeemer will come to Zion, to those who repent in Jacob, and the Jews were not worthy of him. It's possible. I don't know this. But what happened was, unfortunately, there were people that whatever the Rebbe did, that became what the Messiah was supposed to do. So when he became ill, I remember when he had the stroke, and then the second very catastrophic stroke, where the doctors, he was staying at that hospital in New York, The doctor said he was very, very ill. And whatever the report was, we're going back many years, and there was not possible for him to recover. That means that medically, it was impossible that he was ever recover from that later stroke. So I remember in front of the hospital, that wasn't Mount Sinai, I forget which one it was called. Anyways, in front of the hospital, there were his followers. What hospital? Beth Israel, right? It was Beth Israel in Lower New York. He had the whole floor to himself. It was an amazing thing. So outside the hospital, they were saying, the Rebbe cannot die, it's impossible. And in fact, this will be the miracle. Those who are old enough to remember this know I'm not misrepresenting what occurred. They said, in fact, the Rebbe is going to miraculously recover because the Messiah can't die. Listen. And that will be the sign that he's the Mashiach. Those who remember, no, I'm telling the truth. Then what happened was, he died. And I said, so then, unfortunately, a sect from that came out and said, aha, he's supposed to die. So what happened was, now I hope, I don't know what percentage of people who are Lubavitchers today believe this. I hope it's small, but I don't know. But it's very clear what happened was that whatever he did or happened to him defined what the Mashiach is supposed to be, rather than let's go to the text and then say this is what the Mashiach is supposed to do. And that was unfortunate. So you're raising a very painful moment in Jewish history, but do you know what a red herring is? So a red herring was used, dead fish stink, and when they wanted to throw off the bloodhounds from following the proper scent, they would drag a herring across the ground, which would then misguide the bloodhounds, and they would follow that smell instead of the proper scent. So granted that there's not one person in this room that believes this, and you know that everyone besides this sect believes this is a tragedy that people still think he's the Messiah, and the closest people to the Rebbe, like Rev Karinsky, rejected this as something horrible. And Chabadniks ask me, you know what they say to me, Lubavitchers? Say, Rabbi, why don't you speak more about this Mishiachista problem? That people say the Rebbe is still Messiah. They believe it's a disgrace to his memory. So this is certainly unfortunate, but it is truly a red herring because we don't accept that as a truthful belief. Now, so therefore, it's not a fair argument. I don't believe it. So this is what's called a false dichotomy. It's just incorrect. We don't believe it. And now there are other things about it. No one believes it. Even those who believe it, none of them I ever heard of ever told me that he died for anybody's sins or any of that stuff. So that's not. We don't have the Christologies. I'm sorry, but it's just the convenient. I have to use conventional language. None of the Christologies are ensconced in this movement, and I pray that Chabadniks were doing so much good that those who still hold on to it would jettison it. Of course, I do. But it is not fair. Just like it would not be fair if I included you in Roman Catholicism. It's bad because I don't want to say, but it would not be fair for me to attach you to beliefs that you don't hold, right? It wouldn't be fair. If I said you're responsible for what other people do, you'd say, Rabbi, you're not being fair. I ask you to accord me the same respect. And that it's not a fair argument to ask you about a group that is very problematic to the religious Jewish community. It also is not the same. Okay, no, but it is a problem, but it is a red herring, and I don't believe this, and I don't know everyone here, but it's very unlikely there are anybody in here who believes that. Just like I accorded you the respect of not making you responsible, Paul, don't make me responsible for that. Okay, fair, okay. Let's continue. Let's change the topic. You're very important to me. Would you agree? Would you be willing to? I just asked you a question, sweetheart. Would you be willing to, I'm going to be here in Eretz Yisrael for a little bit, sit and study with me? Would you? Would you? Yes? Whatever we talk is you and me, just like now. I'm joking. That will really be between you and me, because you're asking very important questions. And if there's any question you want to ask publicly, now you can, because you're more important to me than I think almost anyone else here, because I'm not going to lie to you, but if you want, you can ask another question now, or we're going to move on to the next person. Do you want to continue? You tell me what to do.
Everybody can make himself a sincere prayer from his heart. Am I right with that?
Say it again.
Am I right with that? That everybody that is here in the room can make a sincere prayer from his heart to Hashem, yeah, and ask him to reveal who is the Mashiach?
Can I ask you a question, and I'll accept your answer? Let's say you did. Let's say I did pray, and a voice came to me and said that Hare Krishna is a true deity, and Hanuman, the monkey god of Hinduism, is the truth. Should I follow it? You tell me. I literally, Hanuman, the monkey god of Hinduism, which is venerated in Bali, very close to where I live. I'm asking you a fair question. I'm using your criteria. Do we have in Tanakh ever such a thing? Or do we have in Tanakh, don't follow your heart because it'll lead you astray? And Jeremiah is saying that the heart is a very wicked thing. Do not go after your heart and lead you astray. What should I do if I pray and the Virgin Mary appears to me as she appears to everybody else over pancakes in the Philippines every day? So I'm asking you honestly, is this really a biblical criteria? Like, what do I do? If you prayed tonight, show me the truth, and Hare Krishna came to you, would you become a Hare Krishna? No. So why would you ever ask me to accept? Why would you, sweetheart, is it the Bible or our authority or not? Okay, then don't tell me to pray and wait for personal revelation. No, I'm right. I love you, Adam, but this one you're wrong on. It wasn't fair. Let's be honest. This one, everything else, I had explained things. You cannot say, oh yeah, only if you come up with my version of Yeshua, then follow your heart. But if you come with anything else, don't follow it. We don't have that. The Bible is our authority, yes or no? Is it sola scriptura? The Bible alone is our authority. Only it. So why would you tell me go pray tonight? And what happens if I pray tonight? Ali Baba from India come to me. What am I supposed to do? Go shave my head off and move to India? No, come on. We don't do this. We are following the Bible here. No, I have to say, Tovia, you're right on that one. Be honest. I'm right. We don't do such things. This is my friend. This is it. That's it. That's it. No praying to yourself and waiting for revelations. Nothing. If the prophet ever had a so-called revelation, what he said, follow other gods your fathers didn't know. Don't keep his orders. Do not follow the words of that prophet or dream of dreams. I am only testing you to see if you really love me. We don't do such things. It's not biblical. We follow the Bible on, okay? Fair, that one. We're going to talk after. A lot of love. Yes, sir. And by the way, thank you so much for having the courage to do this. Mamish. Unbelievable.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא ועת נעשה בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא